Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey, and as always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Monday evening?
Great. Yeah.
We got a lot of big news today. We had some breaking news that broke about an hour and a half before the show started, so that will be our first topic of today. But we got some heavy news from James Harden. My Trey Lance prediction and my Russell Wilson predictions keep on making me more right as the days progress. Oh, I feel good about this season. We also had some rookie action this weekend outside of just C.J. Stroud. We saw a lot of actually really, really good rookie play, and then we had some, outliers that didn't look too good. But let's start with our first topic of today's show, which is indeed the breaking news from
the Harvey headlines.
Breaking news. We got Ezekiel Elliott signed a 1-year, $6 million deal with the New England Patriots.
Harvey headlines.
As
the top stories right now.
Sort of talked about, it was really between Dalvin Cook, Zeke Elliott, Leonard Fournette, and Darrell Henderson Jr., which is pretty interesting. But the Patriots decided to sign Zeke to a 1-year, $6 million deal with a $3 million base salary, a $1 million signing bonus, and the rest in incentives. So I want to know, did the Patriots make a good move here in signing the former All-Pro Cowboy running back Ezekiel Elliott?
Yes. I think it was a good choice, particularly how they played in their preseason game. My God, that was awful. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson didn't play, but the other running backs that back him up did, and they looked terrible. Maybe that was because the offensive line wasn't opening up any holes, but they need somebody else to help Stevenson, and I think Elliott is a good choice, particularly given he scored 12 touchdowns last year, right? He's a very good short yardage back. He gets that yard or two that you really need, and when it's third down. So I think that he'll be a plus for the Patriots.
I completely agree, and this is one of the things that I said. I said if the Patriots don't go out and get a good running back outside of what Zeke and Dalvin Cook, if they decide Leonard Fournette or Darrell Henderson Jr., this is a complete mistake. In the past 2 years, he has a total of 22 rushing touchdowns and 1,800 yards, a little bit more than 1,800 yards. So on paper, it's actually a great pickup for the Patriots because the whole point of this signing, I think, was what I thought would work out. Belichick wants to go to probably a heavy run game with a complementary game of passing because I don't think he fully trusts Mac Jones and his ability. So what's going to happen most likely is they're going to do some sort of two-back system, especially in the red zone because their red zone was ranked 32nd last year. And they're going to have Ramondre Stevenson running back one. And then what's going to happen is when they get to third and short and on the goal line, that's when Zeke's going to come in. That's when Zeke's going to eat because his yards per attempt has drastically decreased year after year after year, and his yards per game have decreased year after year after year. Is he still a running back one? No. Is he still a running back two? Yes. Is he a very effective running back two? For sure he is. And I think Ramondre Stevenson and then backing up with Zeke, especially to be that third and short to red zone guy, works really, really well. But the question is he going to perform? I think that's the big thing here. And a lot of people say that Zeke is washed, and I can understand why some people would say that. But, I think it's unfair. He's only 20. He's going to be 28 years old this year. So, I mean, in reality, actually, no, he just turned 28. I think this is an absolutely amazing move. The question is, and by the way, we have a react. This is what Zeke posted on Twitter. What happened? 1-5 all the way live at Patriots because he is going to go back to his. I think he played for Ohio State in college. He's going back to his Ohio State number. So he's trying to live in the past a little bit, and hopefully, you know what? If he lives in the past and puts up another 1,600 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns, having 108 yards per game, I'm going to be satisfied with that.
Oh, yeah. Well, anybody would be, but I'm pretty sure he won't get that because he's not going to get the kind of number of carries that would allow him to get that kind of yardage. He's going to be the number 2 back. He's not going to be the number 1 back. So, unless Stevenson gets hurt, which I hope not, because I'd say the Patriots are thin at running back.
I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
So they needed this, and I think Zeke can catch a pass out of the backfield too. He's not that bad at catching passes, so he could have some surprise factor when they bring him in on third and short. They might just flip it out to him in the flat there, and he pick up the yards that way.
I mean, The reality is, Belichick didn't go out and get a tremendous receiver. He got Juju Smith-Schuster, who for some reason they paid more than the Chiefs to go get him, and they decided to give up N'Keal Harry for the exact same price. And Jacoby Myers. And Jacoby Myers was Mac Jones's security blanket, especially on third down. That's who Mac Jones looked to. And you decided to replace him with Juju, and then you also extended Devontae Parker, so you couldn't go out and maybe pay what Dalvin Cook may have been looking for, or a D-Hop, pay D-Hop what he could have been looking for, which turns out wasn't even that bad of a contract. So you needed to get a running back cheap, and I said, Zeke already made his money. Now the question is, does he still want to play in the NFL? Because I think that was the big thing here. Because if Dalvin Cook's looking to make money, which I think, truthfully, he probably is looking to make money, the Jets are probably going to pay him his pretty penny, or he could be using the Jets as leverage to get Miami to drive the price up for him.
Are you surprised he's not signed yet?
I'm actually not that surprised because I do think he was using the Jets as leverage and promoting, oh my God, what
Miami.
Jets going to be a super team. If I join them, they're going to be a super team. And then Miami's going to be like, okay, we may lose him. We got to pay more for him. So I think, and I saw that rumor somewhere.
Still not signed, though.
He's still not signed. So I think, he's going for the money. Zeke was more so going to continue his playing career because I think everyone in the NFL saw that, he was probably on a steep decline and wasn't looking to be running back one material on most teams.
Maybe he thinks this can be his rebound year.
Maybe.
That's why I signed a 1-year deal. He can sign a bigger deal next time.
I'm not too sure about that. But what I'm looking for here is Belichick's trying to go old school. Heavy defense, which the defense against the Texans looked really good up until a point. Then, Davis Mills and Case Keenum decided to rip that defense apart, but albeit they were second stringers. But Keon White against that Texans offensive line and against C.J. Stroud came up big early in that game. So my guess would be Belichick's going heavy defense like he usually does in drafts and running game. Because I don't think he trusts Mac Jones entirely, which I think is somewhat fair, but honestly mostly unfair with Bill O'Brien's system. But the offense in that first preseason game did not look good. It looked exactly like last year. Screens and a lot of runs and one or two occasional deep balls.
The runs didn't amount to anything. They couldn't. They got one or 2 yards out of them. They were really bad. But I think that was more the offensive line players were out there were not people who are going to make the team.
Actually, I saw a report today. I have the unofficial depth chart right here. One of their tackles, or is he a guard in this? City So. Who got absolutely smoked in the preseason game. He is currently battling with another one of their pickups to potentially be a tackle, I think. City So and Connor McDermott, who both had trouble in the preseason. That's my note. 75 and 61 had a horrible time stopping the pass rush, and that was Connor McDermott and City So. They're fighting for a spot right now between them two. But City So actually is moving around. They're trying to find a good piece for him. In the first preseason game, he played left tackle. Now he's playing right guard, which I don't know how that's exactly going to work behind Michael Wenu or Cole Strange, either one of those guard positions. But if City So is still going to be on the team, we're going to have to wait and see. That'll mainly be a depth piece, but he did not look good in that preseason game. So if the offensive line, and that's probably I'm not going to say the biggest problem, because I do think having a separation wide receiver one is probably the most important thing for Mac Jones and for the Patriots offense. I'm going to say the offensive line is that next glaring hole. They don't really have a tremendous offensive piece. They have David Andrews as a center. Trent Brown, he's a huge unknown. They paid a decent price for Trent Brown. He was supposed to be really, really good, and he just didn't perform at the level that people were hoping.
Yeah, he's in better shape this year, apparently.
No, yeah. So we should be expecting things, but he's not really practicing that much with the Patriots. I guess he's dealing with some sort of injury. So we're gonna have to wait and see. But if the offensive line isn't any good, Mac Jones can't stay in the pocket for that long, which that's a huge problem. And you can't run the ball. So the offense, like I said, Bill O'Brien could draw up a perfect play, the greatest play in NFL history. If Mac Jones can't, throw the ball in time for the play to develop, it's a wasted play. It's a complete wasted play. So, but that's what Belichick does. Running backs, defensive players, and offensive linemen. That's kind of what he keeps going with throughout the entirety of each draft. And the occasional wide receiver that becomes a bust. Although Kayshon Boutte and Demario Douglas, they seem to be.
They didn't play. Demario Douglas didn't get a chance to really play in the first game. I think he played
1 or 2 snaps, and he actually broke open late for a touchdown. It could have been, but the ball got thrown way before Douglas had a chance to break free, but I saw some in the all 22. Demario Douglas did break free, which could have been a touchdown for him. But no, I don't think he got a single target in that preseason game. So what I'm looking for, I like this pickup, third and short and goal line, try to help that Patriots red zone. I think that'll be big for this season. And you know what? While, yes, he may not be running back one material and go for 85, 90 yards a game, if he goes for 30, 40 with a touchdown here and there, mostly there, I'm completely fine with that. Completely fine with that. But, of course, we'll have to wait and see. And we'll have to wait and see if Zeke actually, performs. But, 1,800 yards and 22 touchdowns in 2 seasons, I think that's pretty promising, especially if he's going to be only your backup running back and not even your running back one. But, of course, as always, we'll have to wait and see.
With the incentive to play well, he has incentives in his contract, and also it's a one-year deal. If he's hoping for a rebound for a bigger contract going forward, he's really incentivized to play well.
Yeah, so, I'm sure he's going to try his best. And besides, this could be one of his last stops if he keeps declining. I don't know how many teams are going to want, a 29-year-old declining running back who has declined ever since his rookie season. He just kept declining and declining and declining, and he's fallen off a cliff since about 4 years ago. But, it's Zeke, so I think it's a good pickup for the Patriots, and we'll have to wait to see how he performs this season. All right, let's get into another news story that I saw earlier today. So we had some breaking news, I guess you could say, earlier today. This was James Harden, and I think it was an Adidas promotion out in China, and this is what James Harden had to say about the president of basketball operations for the 76ers.
Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
That's pretty big stuff. Calling out your president of the team you're currently on.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be part of an organization that he's part of, Harden told the crowd. And then he said it again. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be part of an organization that he's a part of. And now they're coming out saying they won't trade him.
Yeah, they won't. They said on Saturday that they're taking back James Harden's availability, and then I have it here. A source close to Harden who couldn't speak publicly about this because of the sensitivity, but he's close to Harden. He told The Athletic that Harden is not probably going to show up for training camp in September, which is pretty big. However, Daryl Morey said that he's not fazed by this, and he's still hoping James Harden shows up and expects him to show up. Because guess what? He's contractually bound to the 76ers. And I have something here. James Harden, by the way, this mostly stems from James Harden taking a pay cut to hopefully get pieces around him and Embiid in this offseason, which didn't really happen. What I found interesting, though, so in the CBA that all the players signed, that they had to sign, with withholding services, this is Bobby Marks on I guess you could call it X now, but it's Twitter. So this is what it says. So withholding services, a player who withholds playing services, called for by a player contract for more than 30 days after the start of the last season covered by his player contract shall be deemed not to have completed his player contract by rendering the playing services called for thereunder. Accordingly, this is where it gets big. Accordingly, such a player shall not be a veteran free agent and shall not be entitled to negotiate or sign a contract with any other professional basketball team unless and until the team for which the player last played expressly agreed otherwise. James Harden, in other words, James Harden is stuck. He is absolutely stuck as a 76er, and there's nothing nothing he could do about it. So I don't know.
So when he made this comment that Morey is a liar, was it after the 76ers came out and said they want him to keep playing for them? So
Daryl Morey said on this past Saturday how James Harden will no longer be available to trade, and basically that means that it was really the Clippers that he wanted to go to, and that's what they were negotiating between Harden and the Clippers, and that I guess fell through. Morey was asking for too much, or the Clippers were giving up way too little. And today we see Harden come out and say, in front of I guess it was an Adidas promotion, how, Daryl Morey's a liar, which is interesting to say because A, you're not off the team, you're contractually bound to the team, and according to the CBA you signed, you may not get paid, and you can't do anything about, leaving the team or being off the team unless the team says you could get traded. So he's completely stuck. And we do this with a number of players across, football and basketball alike. So I don't know, how do you think this ends for the 76ers and for James Harden?
Well, let's think back. Lamar Jackson looked like he was stuck too, right? He wound up with a huge contract. So never say never. I would say the 76ers will likely trade James Harden.
You think he gets traded in the very end?
Oh, yeah. I think so. I mean, how can you operate in that kind of situation? Just came out and said the guy's a total liar.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to play for that organization again.
Yeah.
I mean, the 76ers put themselves in a pretty bad spot too, right? They have Embiid. Now he doesn't have any all-stars around him.
Right.
Except for what would have been Harden, who was disaffected and doesn't want to play for them. So they risk losing Embiid too. So I think if they make a mess out of this Harden thing, Embiid's going to look at that and say, "Hey, that could have happened to me too. I'm out of here." So they can wind up with nobody.
Yeah, no.
So I think that they better be very careful. They should honor Harden. In fact, they've hurt their chances now by saying that they didn't want to trade him and having Harden backlash from him, because now the other teams will know, you know what, we don't have to give up that much. The 76ers are in a bad spot now.
That is a fair point.
I think Morey is the one that blew this. I mean, I wonder what he did to make Harden so angry.
Well, apparently he lied about something.
I'd like to know what that is.
My guess would be when James Harden had the option of signing that player option and scrapping, like he could have made $47 million, I think this year or last. I think it was last year. And basically, my guess would be Morey said, "Hey, take the pay cut. In the offseason, we'll surround you and Embiid with a bunch of really great players because you're saving me about $14 million that I don't need to give you that I could give to other players." And when that fell through, that's when Harden's like, "Hey, man, come on. You promised me you'll get some, top-level talent." We saw Bradley Beal go to the Suns. I saw somewhere that James Harden really, really liked Bradley Beal in that option. You saw a couple. Draymond Green was even out there. There was an option for him to go join Ime Udoka in the Rockets. I actually thought he would go back to Houston because of the nightclubs, and basically he had control over the Rockets. And also we saw a couple of Chris Paul was even out there. Join back up with Chris Paul if it was on the Sixers. Doesn't necessarily need to be on the Wizards or any other team like that. So there were options there for Morey to really say, "Hey, let's go. Join our team. We got Embiid, we got Harden." And you brought up something very interesting when you talked about Embiid. Embiid may want out. I don't remember if you were on the show. Embiid made a comment, I think about 1 month ago, a month or so ago, in front of this big conference, saying that his goal is ultimately to obviously win a championship, and then he sort of, threw in at the back of that sentence, it may be in Philly or anywhere else. So, and then people thought that he was just trolling because his name on Twitter is Troel Embiid. But I took it seriously because I think this is what could happen. Same thing with the Bucks. If Giannis and this old team, if they fall flat on their face again, or if they have a terrible loss to a very inferior 8 seed, Giannis might be like, "Okay, I won you guys a championship. I won a couple MVPs. I made Milwaukee relevant again. Can I just go somewhere and win? Can I just go somewhere and bring my talents somewhere else?" And I think we could see something like that from Embiid. If guess what? If Harden doesn't want, my guess would be Harden's going to put on a fat suit again and then basically do the exact same thing he did to get out of Houston.
Yeah.
And
he might just say, "I'm sitting out the season."
But then, he won't get paid though. Like that's a big thing. He wants money. It was money or get me players. They didn't get him players, so my guess is he wants to get paid. However, I would like to see the NBA do exactly what they did in the Damian Lillard situation, where they said if you don't play or you say that you're not gonna perform at the level you should because you're contractually bound to this team, we're gonna basically
ban you from the league.
Not ban you, but create some problems. We're going to fine you. We're going to do something. We're going to do something. I want to see the NBA come out and do the same thing for James Harden because he's calling the president of his team a liar. He's probably not going to put in the same amount of effort he would if he did get traded to the Clippers. I think this is going to become a situation, and I want to see the NBA do everything, be smart about this. Make it equally. Your image has not been great the past season or two with the John Morant situation, now with the Dame situation, and now we have a James Harden situation calling his owner a liar and saying that he would never play. What's the quote again? He'll never play for another organization or something like that. What is it?
Says, I will never be part of an organization he's a part of.
So, I mean, the NBA is very player. It's player run. It's one of like the very, very few organizations or leagues, professional sports that the players really run the league. Now, obviously, there's owners, GMs, coaches, other executives. But the players are the ones that really have the power. The NFL, we saw Lamar Jackson make a big fuss over everything.
He wound up with a big contract.
He wound up with a big contract, but in reality, the Ravens had all the rights to it because they signed him to a non-exclusive franchise tag. Any team could have given him an offer, and the Ravens could have just said, okay, we'll take that offer.
Yeah, but he was asking for way too much.
And the team still won. They didn't get rid of him, even though he could have threatened, I'll be disappointed. I won't play as well as I should. There was a report that he could have been healthy for the playoffs last season, but he didn't play. There could have been many opportunities on not only on Lamar, but on several other players where they could have been disgruntled, but the team ultimately gets the upper hand because guess what? The NFL could we're seeing with running backs. Running backs are they feel like the market is severely suppressed, and whether that's true or not, you could literally just bring the next man up and say, okay, buy Saquon, buy Josh Jacobs, buy Austin Eckler. Here's your replacement. We're going to play him now. The players, on that sense, really have no power there. In the NBA, it's, you want out? Okay, where do you want to go? You want to go there? Sure, we'll take less to send you there. That's what we're seeing with the Dame situation. And guess what? Ultimately, my guess would be no team is going to actually, although it's stupid, I think he's going to ultimately end up with the Heat anyway because no team wants to be involved in that situation where Dame potentially does not play at his tip-top level that he could, and he gets disgruntled there. Sort of like a lower, not the same, obviously, level of Kyrie, because Kyrie is a whole different type of person, but that same level of being away from the team and creating problems within that organization. We can see the same thing with Dame, and who knows? Harden is, let's be honest here, Harden's probably going to do it with the Sixers this season, because we saw him force his way out of Houston, we saw him force his way out of Brooklyn, and now we're going to see him force his way out of the Sixers.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that Morey he's helping to make this happen by whatever he did. They lied to him, as you say. It's probably around the salary where he was going to make 47. He wound up making mid-30s, and they didn't bring in the players to help get them over the top. So I think it really sets the stage for Embiid to be leaving. And guess where I think he's winding up? The New York Knicks.
That's actually where I picked him to go. And I think I'm pretty sure you were on the show when I did the Quentin Grimes, R.J. Barrett, and I think a couple other people and a few first round picks for it was either Giannis or I think it was for Embiid though. And I think honestly the Knicks should get him, and I think Julius Randle will be a part of that trade too. You get Jalen Brunson, you got Josh Hart who signed an extension, you got Embiid there. I mean, hey, I think that trade will work out pretty well, and I think the win-loss I calculated, it wasn't even that significant of a loss for the Sixers.
I don't know.
But then again, that's still with James Harden on the roster. James Harden may not even be on the roster if Embiid, and my guess would be Embiid doesn't leave this season. I think it'd be most likely next season where Embiid either hints that he wants to leave or some
well, if Harden isn't there if Harden is not there with the Sixers and the Sixers plummet, right, then Embiid's going to ask to leave.
I think that would be smart.
What's his contract look like beyond this year? Has he got an option to say goodbye?
I'll bring that up in a second. Let's see. Joel Embiid, because he just won the MVP. They choked in the playoffs. He becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2027. So he's still got about 4 years left on his deal. Yeah. So he's probably not going to be there for a while, or at least leaving for a while to become a free agent at least. So. We'll have to wait and see, obviously, but this is. I don't think this is nowhere near over yet.
No, I agree. And I think the Sixers are in. I think Harden has the upper hand. I really do.
You really do?
Yeah, I do. I think he has the upper hand.
I don't know if Harden has the upper hand. I think if he doesn't show up, if he's true to his word, true to whoever this source is that's close to James Harden, if he really doesn't show up, if the Sixers...
He doesn't need the money.
If the Sixers call his bluff and he's really not bluffing, he's not showing up, then I think, Harden would have the upper hand. But I think if the Sixers hold on strong and Murray says, hey, we want you at training camp, we want you here, we want you to be a Philadelphia 76er, we still think we can win with you and Embiid
Or maybe
at the helm.
if he throws him some more money, maybe he'll throw him some more money.
I mean, after he called him a liar, I don't know why you would.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yeah. But this situation is very far from over. We'll have to see in September, when September rolls around, if James Harden does show up to training camp in Philly. Let's move on to our next topic before break. So, Trey Lance did not look that hot in his first preseason game of this season with the 49ers in a weird, uncharacteristic loss to the Las Vegas Raiders with, what's his name, Aiden O'Connell, I believe the quarterback is for the Raiders, at the helm of that squad. Tearing it up on the field. We'll talk about that after the break. But Trey Lance got sacked 4 times, and I believe their first 4 possessions was a total of, I think, 4 minutes total on the play time. It did not look good, and he had 2 dropped interceptions in that first half that should have been picked off. And I have a couple of clips here of those interceptions. But before I jump into that, I want to know what's your impression of Trey Lance, and then we're going to talk about later on in this topic alone, but also of Sam Darnold in their first preseason game of this season.
Well, I watched a little bit of that game, and I thought, and I listened to a lot of the commentary afterwards, and they ripped Trey Lance. But his stats actually didn't look that bad. 10 of 15, 112 yards, over 100 quarterback rating. But yeah, as you said, he's lucky that 2 passes weren't intercepted, and he did get sacked 4 times. I mean, I don't know. He's a pretty quick guy. I don't know why he couldn't avoid some of that and just throw the ball out of bounds. But he got sacked 4 times, so that doesn't say much for the offensive line. I think it's a pretty small sample, and you're playing with players that are not going to be starters in the regular season. So I give him a pass. I think I need to see a little more of a sample of his play before we write him off. And I'm pretty sure the 49ers feel the same way. Darnold looked a little better. He was 8 of 14, 87 yards. But I don't trust that guy. I don't think he's a world beater. So I think these guys are slugging it out for who's going to back up Brock Purdy. I don't think they have a shot at being the starter.
And that's where that is where I agree with you. This is not for who's going to be the starting quarterback at the 49ers. This is who is going to back up Brock Purdy when I think Brock Purdy got the 100% okay to go. But if he's 90% ready to go, who's going to be his backup? Otherwise, it's, who's quarterback 2, quarterback 3. There is a 0% chance Trey Lance or Sam Darnold will be the starting quarterback in week 1. Brock Purdy is the starter. Mr. Irrelevant is going to be the future of the 49ers. It's not move up a bunch of first-round picks to draft number 3 and get Trey Lance, and it's not, previous bust Sam Darnold. However, last year, Sam Darnold put his team in a position to actually make the playoffs after the Baker Mayfield fiasco. That was a complete mess. And then XFL quarterback P.J. Walker took over for, a little bit there. And then Sam Darnold had an opportunity, if he beat the Bucs, to potentially move his team into the playoffs.
But he didn't.
That's because Brady decided to have one vintage game. That was the only game where we're like, damn, that's Tom Brady. But, it turned out to be, he was close, but of course, wasn't there. I want to talk about these interceptions here, okay? Would have been interceptions here. Because I think, I have it right here. Trey Lance's passer rating, which I think is, a relatively important stat, was 111.0. He went 10 of 15, 112 yards, 1 touchdown. You take that touchdown away, then you add on the 2 picks. I think his passer rating plummets down to like 70 or below if you include those two interceptions. And let's actually bring up those interceptions right now, or would have been. This one was probably, you could already put this in the luckiest play this season. A tipped interception into the hands of a waiting tight end right there. And honestly, this was a bad throw. Over the middle of the field in a triangle of Raiders defenders, and it got tipped to a tight end for a touchdown. I mean, this is the 30th ranked secondary. No duh, they're the 30th ranked secondary. They can't hold on to an interception. Yeah. Well, how about this one? A linebacker staring down Trey Lance. Trey Lance doesn't do anything to fake him out. Me and you could have caught that interception. I mean, come on. It was right. He followed his eyes, didn't do anything. Could have been a simple interception that, obviously got dropped. What about Sam Darnold? Sam Darnold actually had the best throw for the 49ers, and it was an absolute dime. This is what Sam Darnold's throw along the sideline. This is a beautiful placement ball, a beautiful catch, a massive gain. That was the best throw of the entire game, at least for the 49ers. Sam Darnold had the best throw. He didn't really even play that much. I think he had 8 total passes in the game. So I think, we could have seen Sam Darnold out there a little bit more. And if I had to make my prediction there, I think Sam Darnold pushed a little bit farther ahead of Trey Lance just because Trey Lance got extremely lucky. And also, Trey Lance did not look comfortable in the pocket. As being athletic as he is, 6'4", 220, I mean, he was nervous. He didn't really even use his athleticism that much. He had 1 rushing attempt for 2 yards. And might I also add, in the first, I believe it was the first quarter, they had a net gain of 1 yard. 1 yard after 1 quarter. And that's with Trey Lance at the helm of being your quarterback. Yeah. He was nervous. This is his 3rd year in the NFL, 3rd year in the system. He was the rawest quarterback. And actually, unlike Russell Wilson, we're going to talk about him at the end of the show today. Russell Wilson had 55 sacks last year and held on to the ball too much. Yesterday, Russell Wilson actually got rid of the ball quicker, and Trey Lance, being probably the more athletic version of Russell Wilson, the younger version of Russell Wilson, was way too antsy, completely way too antsy in the pocket, didn't know where to go with the ball. He pump faked a couple times in the pocket where if he just pulled the trigger, it either would have been an incomplete pass and he wouldn't have gotten sacked, or it could have been a completion. Trey Lance looks nervous, 3rd year in the system. I don't trust him. And Kyle Shanahan has already said great things about Sam Darnold, so he could revive his career with the 49ers. Yeah. So, I don't really hear those types of things about Trey Lance.
So, Darnold had 14 passes. He completed 8 of them.
He had 5. What do you mean? He had 8 pass attempts.
No, 8 of 14.
I have it here, 5 of 8 for Sam Darnold.
Oh, yeah?
10 of 15 for Trey Lance, and then 5 of 8 from Brandon Allen. 5 of 8 for 84 yards. So, he even had more, yards per completion at 10.5.
My thought is that the 49ers are going to keep 3 quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the injury history that they've been having with their quarterbacks getting hurt.
Absolutely. And especially with the new quarterback.
I don't know why. A lot of people run that same offense that Shanahan has.
About half the league, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't seem to have these kinds of problems, but I'm pretty sure San Francisco will keep all 3 of them.
And I think now with that 3rd quarterback rule, it's not a roster spot. I believe that's what it is, an emergency quarterback. It's not a roster spot. I think we could see more teams do that. And I think right now what's going to happen is Brandon Allen's not going to be on the team. He's either going to go to the practice squad or get released. It'll be Brock Purdy, if this is the order of the depth chart, Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, Trey Lance. And my guess would be if Trey Lance, you moved up 3, you used 3 first-round picks and another pick, I believe, to go up against Trey Lance. He barely played. He's dealing with injuries, his lack of confidence. You decide to move him up beyond Jimmy G, but then decide to retain Jimmy G when Trey Lance didn't really show a tremendous amount of injury concern. I think he had 1 injury the season before, but he still decided to re-sign Jimmy G with Jimmy G's injury history.
Who is the 4th quarterback that they have?
Brandon Allen. He went 5 of 8 for 36 yards.
He's not a rookie, right?
No, he's been around for a little while.
So they may play him some in the preseason, put him on the taxi squad, right? Then have the 3 quarterbacks, and it doesn't cost them a roster spot. And then at the trade deadline, maybe they'll trade Trey Lance.
That's what I think.
And then they could bring up Brandon Allen. He could be the 3rd quarterback.
I mean, if I had to, I would trade Trey Lance. Here's the thing: if he sits on your bench, he's just a rotting roster spot. He's rotting value. You spent 3 first-round picks to go up and get him, and you're not going to use him. And I honestly, that's the smart decision because Brock Purdy looked like this significantly better quarterback. So if you're telling me now, I moved up 3 first-round picks to get him, and my guess would be his value right now is what, a 4th-round pick at the very best, and that's if a team is desperate. You give up a 4th-round pick for him?
Okay, well, again, as I say, it's a small sample. He was only in there for. What, half? Was he played the first half?
I believe he played the first half.
The first half. He hasn't played in a long time. It's a preseason game, and not many quality players out there, particularly in the offensive line for the 49ers. My God, he did get sacked 4 times. So I'd give it another preseason game or 2, and then we'll be in a better position to evaluate it, I think. That's my thought.
I'm saying 3 years in the system now. You don't seem to really have grown confidence.
Yeah, but last year he was hurt almost the whole season.
Right, but that was during the season. What about during OTAs and training camp and mini camp? They said it was his team, and they made him the starter. But then the year before that, he was coming in as a Super Bowl quarterback. They've seen him in camp and during practice for 3 years. And now this season, he won't even really I guarantee you, he won't get a chance to start. And if I had to take a wild shot in the dark guess, the only chance he gets, the only opportunity he would start is if Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy go down, because I think Sam Darnold will get the roster spot above him, and he'll be relegated to QB3.
Yeah,
because I think Sam Darnold looked better. He looked like the more explosive quarterback, and obviously he looked like the more experienced quarterback. We've seen it now with young quarterbacks versus veterans. Hell, not even like that long of a veteran, like Davis Mills. We saw it go from C.J. Stroud to Davis Mills, and the offense picked up tempo, it picked up speed. Davis Mills, they moved off him for C.J. Stroud. Davis Mills looked like the better quarterback. I can understand he's a rookie. He's jittery.
The C.J. Stroud, he looked very nervous before the game.
He did.
And they only let him play 3 series, right? He only played 3 series. So, again, a very small sample. He's just getting started in the NFL. Davis Mills, they've had several years to look at him. They don't think he's the future of the team. So, we'll see.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. However, we're going to take a break, though. So we saw a lot of rookie quarterbacks, like I said, play this weekend. But who stood out amongst the rest? We discussed that. And also, are the Broncos in trouble after playing their starters for, I believe, a quarter to a quarter and a half and still losing to the Arizona Cardinals? We'll talk about that right after this.
You have a lot to say. Maybe you've thought, I should start a podcast. Meet Anchor, the easiest way to make a podcast ever. It's a powerful mobile app and web tool that lets you record a podcast anywhere and distribute it everywhere. It's great whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out. And it's 100% free. You can record your show straight into Anchor on your phone, iPad, or the web, using any mic you want. Record alone or with friends or co-hosts anywhere in the world. You can add background music and transitions, and your listeners can send you voice messages that you can incorporate right into your next episode. If you want to produce your show using another app, you can upload your own audio directly from web or mobile and still take advantage of Anchor's totally free podcast hosting. Once your podcast is ready to publish, Anchor can automatically distribute it to every major podcast platform. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, so your listeners can hear your show wherever they want. And on the web, you can see detailed analytics about how people are listening. Plus, you'll get a great-looking profile page where anyone can listen to your podcast or subscribe to it. And if you want to ask your audience to support your work, Anchor makes it easy to collect monthly payments from the people who love your podcast and want to see it grow. You really don't need a recording studio, expensive equipment, or a bunch of technical knowledge to deal with a podcast feed. Just get started and join the diverse community of podcasters already on Anchor. We can't wait to hear your podcast.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey, and as always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. We got some breaking news. So, as we talked about 10 minutes ago, we talked about the running back situation, Ezekiel Elliott. We got breaking news. Dalvin Cook is now officially a New York Jet, signing a 1-year, up to $8.6 million contract to become a part of the New York Jets. And now the super team we were told about, well, my prediction was wrong about him potentially using the Jets as leverage. It is now official. New York's newest running back is now Dalvin Cook. So I want to know, what's your reaction to this breaking news? And I just want to know what your opinion is. Dalvin Cook officially becoming a New York Jet.
I'm not that surprised. I mean, the Jets they're known for throwing money around, and they threw some to Dalvin Cook because they think they're headed to the Super Bowl this year. They want to give themselves every chance to do it. And he's a good pickup, no doubt about it. He's a quality running back. And 1 year, $8.6 million, he's probably worth it.
I would 100% say he's worth it. I just brought it up here. So Dalvin Cook, he's been in the league for 6 years. And he right now, for the past 4 seasons, he's been a 1,000-yard rusher, actually an 1,100-yard rusher each of the past 4 seasons. And that first season, 2019, where he started his 1,000-yard streak, He went 1135 and 13 touchdowns. Then he went to 1557 with 16 touchdowns, 1159 with 6 touchdowns, 1173 with 8 touchdowns. So he's a hell of a back. He's a pretty good receiving back as well. Last year he had 56 targets, 39 catches for basically 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I mean, bringing Dalvin Cook to the Jets was a amazing move. It's good for Hard Knocks, their HBO series. That's going to be a hell of a episode to watch. But I think this makes the Jets definite playoff contenders, and I think that puts them even closer to being a Super Bowl contender. But I still have worries about their quarterback. Unless he decides to just drop it off to Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook throughout the playoffs, when it's time to show up in the playoffs, Aaron Rodgers becomes very, very small. I mean, he lost to Jimmy G in his own stadium in conditions which statistically he gets significantly better in when it's freezing cold and snowing. He lost to the 49ers and Jimmy G. Jimmy G outplayed him.
Yeah.
So we were talking about super team.
Well, I
kind of agree with that.
Maybe they think that if Aaron Rodgers starts coming up small in a playoff game, he'll hand it off to Dalvin Cook every time.
Yeah, I would say so.
It can't hurt the Jets to have him.
Absolutely not.
I think that makes them stronger. They're pretty deep at running back now, right?
Well, it depends on how much you value some of these running backs. I think Michael Carter's okay, not great. Breece Hall was very, very promising. Tore his ACL.
Yeah, that's a problem.
He's still a big question mark for week 1, whether or not he's going to be good to go. And now having Dalvin Cook there, you can now sit Breece Hall out and make sure he's not only 100%, he's 110% ready to go, which would be even a bigger help to Aaron Rodgers if we see that downward trend we saw last season when his last season with the Packers went 8-9. So that I think that this adds another level of security. It adds another level of safety for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. And now you got Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard, Corey Davis, Randall Cobb, McCole Hardman. I don't love the tight ends, but Tyler Conklin and C.J. Uzomah. The offensive line is still an issue. That's probably the biggest question mark here. Yeah. However, they just beat the crap out of the Panthers.
What'd you think of Zach Wilson's performance? He didn't look that bad.
He looks much better than he has in the past. But I think this Dalvin Cook move is super beneficial for the Jets. And I think the Patriots won't sweep the Jets this year, like you were saying before.
Well, I'm still counting on it.
Of course, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's official. Dalvin Cook, 1-year deal to become a member of the New York Jets. All right, let's get into our next topic. Let's get back on schedule here. So we saw a lot of rookie quarterbacks play this past weekend. C.J. Stroud, we talked about him, but I'm sure we'll mention him throughout this topic. We saw the start of Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, even Will Levis made an appearance. We got Aiden O'Connell of the Raiders. We saw DTR back once again for the Browns, and a lot more. So I want to know, were you impressed with what you saw from this year's rookie QB class?
Not particularly. I would have to say Bryce Young, 406, 21 yards. Took 2 huge hits. He didn't really do a whole lot. I mean, he wasn't in there very long. But I saw they showed Coach over on the sidelines. He kind of rolling his eyes a little bit, some of the performance there. So he's definitely a work in progress. And then Will Levis, 9 of 14, 85 yards and an interception. I'd say, that was nothing to write home about. And then Anthony Richardson, 7 of 12, 67 yards. So, I mean, these big-name quarterbacks were talked about so much in the draft, and they're off to slow starts in their first preseason games. But again, very small samples and not out there with the first-string players. So that we'll have to wait and see. But I would say probably both Young and Richardson are going to be starters this year, right? Yeah. So we'll be seeing a lot more of them in the preseason.
I completely agree, and I think it's going to be exciting to watch some of these rookies perform. I sort of broke it down here. C.J. Stroud was the most nervous and probably the worst performer of the major rookie quarterbacks. Right. The surprising, phenomenal performance, and actually we could see as a starter, is Aiden O'Connell of the Raiders. Now, Jimmy G has an injury history, and Aiden O'Connell absolutely balling out against, albeit it's backups and third stringers, against the 49ers defense. It was impressive. Go 15 of 18, 141 yards and 1 touchdown. It was a sight to see. Richardson, he had one very bad pick early on. His feet weren't really planted. He had bad footing. He sort of just whipped it, and I think it was to Alec Pierce, who overran the pass. But after that, he made a couple good throws. He made one really, really good throw over the middle of the field. There was one that could have been a touchdown if Alec Pierce held on to the ball. Bryce Young had no protection. Zero protection. I mean, it's basically like there was no offensive line, and it was like target practice. It was like kill the carrier. Every time Bryce Young got the ball, it seemed like a Jet was headhunting for him. I mean, he's taking him out, and he's a small quarterback, and that was the big issue going to the draft. He's very, very small. The helmet even looks like, it looks like his head's inflated with that helmet on. So, I mean, he was getting battered. It looked like he was getting battered and bruised against the Jets' defensive line. And then Will Levis, honestly, there was he had one interception on the day. He had, 9 of 14, 85 yards, one pick, and that one pick was late in the game. Well, I think about 20 seconds remaining in the game. It was sort of like a do-or-die throw sort of for Will Levis. So that's not entirely like, oh my God, a horrible interception. It's sort of like a do-or-die moment. But based on my eye test, he probably looked the most confident out of all the quarterbacks. Stepped into his throws, looked calm in the pocket, and I think, honestly, we saw how he played. I think he was the most confident out of all the quarterbacks.
Then O'Connell?
I mean, O'Connell played the best.
Yeah.
But
he looked pretty confident. I was watching that game a little bit. He looked confident out there.
I saw a couple jittery times in the pocket when the 49ers may have been,
Where did he play college ball? I never heard of him.
I could bring that up hopefully quickly. Aiden O'Connell played at Purdue.
Okay.
4th round pick this year. So he looked really good. But I think the most calm in the pocket, the most confident in the pocket, I think was Will Levis. He made a couple nice throws, but then it's the Titans with a rebuilding offensive line, battling out for with Malik Willis, who I think actually won the day. But I think Will Levis had a perfectly fine performance, especially what we heard at minicamp and training camp, where he was making horrible throws. He looked bad. Everything we thought there's a reason why he fell in the draft, and I think that was sort of becoming true. But after this performance against it was against the Bears. It was against the Bears, who don't have a great defense. So, maybe it could have been that. However, we just saw the Raiders with the 30th ranked defense slow down Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, and only allowed them to score, one touchdown on the day? So, I don't know. I was impressed, but I don't know. If I had to say who I'm confident about, Bryce Young, he threw 6 passes. I can't really do much with 6 passes. Richardson, I think he's going to be, I mean, he's the rawest quarterback, and he looked really, really good for being that raw. Playing, I think, he started 1 season in college, and that was his last season with Florida. So I think he looked better than I was expecting. I think it would have been, I thought it would have been not a great performance, but he did play pretty well. I'm scared about C.J. Stroud still. He was my first overall pick in the draft when we did our mocks. Not feeling too good about that. But then again, like you said, small sample size, only threw 4 passes. However, there was nothing there. There was nothing to be excited about. At least, we have reasons. Bryce Young, no offensive line. Anthony Richardson, super raw quarterback. He had something to be excited about. Will Levis, I saw a lot of confidence from Will Levis. Aiden O'Connell, a 4th round pick, looked great. DTR on the Browns. Actually, DTR probably had the best performance overall. 9 of 10, 102 yards and a touchdown, 142.5 passer rating. I mean, we saw 2 straight preseason games, the Hall of Fame game and this game, where Dorian Thompson-Robinson tore it up. Now, albeit it's against the Commanders and they lost.
Yeah.
However, he still played very, very well. So
he's not going to play Deshaun Watson. They have to play him because he's got the big money.
And that's the
it's
sad
all
thing.
Guaranteed too, every penny of it.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Hey, no, I
$232 million.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
And I think, truthfully, if Deshaun Watson wasn't getting paid all that money, and he was on an okay deal, like he was basically like on like a 1 or 2 year deal, not worth that much money.
He'd be fighting for his job.
I guarantee you, DTR would be fighting for that QB1 spot because he's been playing. He played that well so far. So I mean, but it's all because he's getting paid $230 million fully guaranteed that he's going to retain that job. But he actually didn't look that bad. He went 3 for 3 for I think 12 yards. He had a couple of runs, a couple of scrambles. I mean, he didn't look like that rusty Deshaun Watson we saw. But of course, preseason week 1.
Yep.
We have to wait and see how he progresses throughout the rest of the preseason. Let's get into our last topic. I'm feeling more and more confident about this. It's a trend, not a blip prediction when it comes to Russell Wilson. But this was not a pretty game in the least. So we saw the Broncos play most of their starters actually against the Arizona Cardinals. We saw Jerry Jeudy out there. We saw Russell Wilson out there. And somehow they lost to the Arizona Cardinals, who everyone believes will probably be the first overall pick of the 2024 NFL Draft. So I want to know, are you worried about Russell Wilson and the Broncos after, week 1 of the preseason and how the offense didn't look too hot with Sean Payton?
I'm not really. I think it was a smart move on Payton's part to put the starters out there. They had such a poor season last year. To get them out there and see what they can do, even if they're playing against a lot of players who won't make it. I think it was to get a sample of that. It was good for him. And they said after the game, how'd you feel about it? He said, I'm disappointed we didn't win. Anytime you play and you don't win, it's a disappointment. I like that comment. And you look at Russell Wilson's performance: 7 of 13, 93 yards. He had 102.4 quarterback rating. He threw 1 TD. He started out terrible, but he did play better later in the game. And he ended on a high note by throwing that. He stood in the pocket under a lot of pressure and threw a strike to Jeudy for a 21-yard touchdown. So that was pretty good. I think the offensive line was the real problem, as it was in most of these preseason games. They're throwing these players out there who haven't played, a lot of rookies and third-string players, and they don't have any chemistry with each other. I mean, Wilson was hit 5 times and sacked once on 14 dropbacks. That's pretty tough to be good in that with that kind of situation. And he got them down there in field goal range twice, I think 3 times actually, and they missed 2 of the field goals. So, the fact that they lost, I think that it's a preseason game. It doesn't mean that much. He missed on the first three third downs. The fourth drive was really very good. I think it's still a work in progress. He looked fresh. He looked quick. So I think that they're probably not disappointed in his performance.
I'll say one thing. That Jarrett Stidham might take his job. Don't believe that no more. He played horrible. 5 of 15 for, 50 yards and an interception. Had, I think, the lowest passer rating of the weekend with a 16.0. Wow. CJ Stroud wasn't even that bad. He had a 17.7. I believe it was on Thursday that they played. But still, regardless of what the situation is, you played your starters, and while you were up 10-0, and hold on, I want to make this very clear, 10-0 playing your starters against the Cardinals' backups, that right there, I think, is a concern. Yes, you were up 10-0. But the fact that it was only 10-0 against probably the worst football team this season, with the most dysfunction, with I believe the lowest organization grade that they graded this past offseason, and you only could score 10 points. The offensive line, as we say with a couple teams on this show, was a sieve. It was a turnstile. However, there's one thing Russell Wilson didn't, this time, there was one thing Russell Wilson didn't do that he did a lot of last year. He didn't take a lot of sacks. Trey Lance held the ball in the pocket, pump fake, took the sack. Russell Wilson tried to avoid taking the sack as much as possible. He did this weird, sort of flip to a running back while he was basically getting drawn to the ground. It wasn't a completed pass, but, he was doing stuff like that to sort of evade any sort of sack. So at least he's trying not to take as many sacks.
Pressure on him, though.
They did. I believe
5 hits, 1 sack, and 14 dropbacks. That's a pretty high percentage.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, let's bring it up here. I think Russell Wilson got pressured. The number is on basically 60% of his dropbacks. That's insane. He's getting pressure every time he snaps the ball. There's a 1 in 2 chance. There's a 50% chance someone is basically going to be on top of him, and he needs to get the ball out quick. But he's still holding on to the ball, I think, a little bit too long. He's not getting that quick release. We heard concern that Russell Wilson and the Sean Payton offense wasn't clicking very well. There were concerns that he couldn't deal with the Sean Payton offense, and I think that's in large part why Sean Payton decided to start most of the starters, especially on offense, to see whether or not they can get something rolling. And, when you only put up 17 points against the Cardinals and you go up only 10-0, and I believe it was in the first half or the first quarter, something like that, or quarter and a half with your starters out there versus the Cardinals' backups and third stringers, I'm just saying, I was nowhere near impressed with Russell Wilson's performance in the first preseason game. Now, do I expect him to play more than this one preseason game?
I think so.
I hope so, because if Russell Wilson is truly in a decline, here's the thing: Sean Payton may be able to save the offensive line. He may be able to save the running game. He may be able to save the defense that didn't really need saving. But can Sean Payton keep up the defensive prowess that they had last year? Probably. The big question is, can he solve Russell Wilson? And that's where I think we may see an anomaly in Sean Payton's coaching career. He made it work with Drew Brees. He made it work with Teddy Bridgewater.
Winston.
He made it work with Taysom Hill. He made it work with Jameis Winston. We're going to see if he can make it work with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, speaking of Jameis Winston, he had a pretty good game.
And same as Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Two quarterbacks that people gave up on. The Las Vegas wanted Derek Carr out of there, didn't believe in him for 9 years, even though he's probably the most reliable piece on that Raider team. Even with Max Crosby, even with Chandler Jones, the defense was still not that great. The running game was good, but, Derek Carr was probably the most consistent piece. And Jameis Winston, who had a very good start with Sean Payton, both of them had really, really good games. And we talked about this before. I think Jameis Winston would be a perfectly fine quarterback underneath the right system with a offensive coach who could develop his game and sort of minimize mistakes. The no risk and no biscuit offense, we saw what that turned into. 30 touchdowns, 35 turnovers. Not the prettiest sight in the world to see. And we saw, with Dennis Allen as your head coach, Jameis Winston did not look so good, and he got benched. He was dealing with an injury, and then when he was cleared, Andy Dalton still retained the job.
They kept Andy Dalton in there. I thought that was a mistake.
I think Andy Dalton played just good enough, well enough to retain that job, even though I think, honestly, I don't think it would have worked out that great for the Saints anyway. Because I think Dennis Allen's not a good head coach. There's nothing on Jameis Winston. That's not even nothing on Andy Dalton. I just think Dennis Allen, not a good head coach. I think he's a much better defensive coordinator, and my guess would be that's exactly where he's heading to at the end of this season.
Really?
Hey, no, here's the thing. The Saints should be head and shoulders above any other team in the NFC South. But let's say they win. Let's say they go 9-8 and win the division. I think his job could still be in the air just because they're clearly the better team.
Well, they'd make the playoffs. Right.
If 9-8, if the NFC South, if someone
that'd be better than last year. They didn't make the playoffs last year
and went 7-10, but 8-9 won that division last year. So if you're only one win better than the last year's division winner, and you can't even hit double digits, and you're clearly the better team there, I mean, the Saints should sweep their division.
Yeah, well,
they should go 6-0.
We'll see what happens.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. But that does wrap up.
Wait, we got a couple minutes left here, Nate. It's not quite 7:30 yet. I'd like to make a little baseball comment, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Red Sox, 2 out of 3 from Detroit. They're been winning a lot lately, back in the winning spirit, getting decent pitching. So where do they stand right now in the wild card?
I'll bring that up for you. Right now, the Red Sox, last time I checked, they were 5 games out.
I thought they got it to 3 games here recently.
It might still be. Let's say MLB standings. Wild card. The Red Sox are 3 games out of the wild card.
3 games. That's not too much.
They are now a 2-game ahead of their rival, the Yankees.
Yeah, the Yankees have been playing terrible.
They were up. I think 7-2 in the 9th. Gave up. I think it was 7-3 in the 9th. Gave up 5 runs and then lost the game last night.
8-7. Yeah.
That's very, very bad. Right now they're a game and a half behind Seattle. To get that next tier of wild card closeness, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
But Blue Jays, Rays, and Astros right now hold the wild card spots.
Yeah. So, who's the Red Sox playing in this next series?
I believe I think they go Astros, Dodgers, Astros, if I'm not mistaken.
That's tough.
Oh no, sorry. They play the Nationals tomorrow.
The Nationals. So they should win that game.
They go. There we go. Nationals, Yankees, and then it's Astros, Dodgers, Astros.
Yeah.
And then back.
How
to
many
Royals.
games against the Nationals?
2.
2 games.
Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday they play the Yankees.
The Yankees at the Yankees. Yeah.
They let's see. starting this Wednesday, they play pretty much every single day. Yeah, they're oh, here we go. They play every single day until September 7th. That's their first day off.
Wow.
So they have a long that's a 3-week span they got.
Yeah.
Every single day they're going to be playing for the next 3 weeks. And my guess would be you're not going to see Devers every single game. You're not going to see Story or Duvall or Masataka Yoshida. Yeah. You're not going to see some of these top tier guys. They're going to put out people that you've never heard of that they're going to probably bring up from their what, the AA, AAA, whoever the hell.
I don't know. I think that they
somewhere in the reserves.
They got some of their players coming back now. Chris Sale's back. He pitched pretty well. Better than I thought. I didn't think he would pitch that well.
We're not seeing Verdugo or any of these starters out here for 3 straight weeks. My guess would be they're going to probably, they're in, let's say, 10 games at the very most. There's going to be people, there's going to be other pitchers or a couple players in there you've never even heard of in your life.
Yeah, well, maybe. We'll see.
But
they're playing the Yankees. They're going to put their best team out there for that, for sure, because the Yankees are wounded right now. They want to get back into it, and this will be the Red Sox are ahead of them right now, so they'll want to try to close that gap.
Well, let's say the Red Sox and the Astros match their records, so the Astros stay at 2.5 games in the wild card. The Red Sox could actually make a jump and be 1 game above them in the wild card if that's the case. If they sweep the 4-game series against the Astros, the first one, then they go up against the Dodgers, where I guarantee you they're going to lose the 2 games?
Are those
3 games to the Dodgers.
At the Dodgers?
That's at Red Sox.
Oh, it's at Red Sox.
At Red Sox. The Astros is at
Mookie
Astros.
Betts. He'll be there.
No, I mean, obviously he plays for the Dodgers. I think Freddie Freeman's also on that team as well. He's going for his MVP race with
the Dodgers look
Ronald
tough.
Acuna.
Dodgers look very tough.
No, they had a huge slump. About third way through the season. That's when the Diamondbacks were leading up there. But then they took back their NL West title back. So they're still at tip top shape.
You got to get up there for a game, Nate. Summer's almost over.
Yeah, we got a Yankees series in early September or early mid September. They also play the White Sox later on. Then they play their last series.
I'd like to go see the Dodgers.
Their last series.
Is that a 2-game set with the Dodgers?
3.
And it's a weekend, right?
Let's see. The Dodgers set is Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
The last series, 4-game series against the Orioles. That's how you end the year.
Yeah. Well,
there is a high likelihood you go 0 for 4 in that series.
No, I don't think so. Maybe the Orioles have locked everything up and they're not playing their best players.
Hey, they're going for that top spot in the MLB most likely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I had to take a guess, let's see, league-wide, they are right now, let's go overall. They are the second best team in baseball. 2.5 games
It's amazing.
Hearing the words Orioles and...
The Orioles have been so bad for so long.
Yeah.
This year, they're the best. One of the best.
Near the best. Hearing the word Orioles...
Who's better than them?
The Braves by 2.5 games. But just to hear the words Orioles and second best team in baseball, not in the AL East, but in baseball, in my mind, that just does not compute properly because, my lifetime, the Orioles have not been tremendous. They haven't been dominating.
Yeah.
They made the playoffs a couple times, but, you heard about, was it Chris Davis, a bunch of strikeouts and that whole huge thing. I don't know. The Orioles just haven't been very, very good, but now they have a great farm system, great young team, great young nucleus. So, hey, good for the Orioles. They're putting themselves on the map, and they're definitely marking their territory right now.
They look like a playoff team this year for sure.
The question is, though, who's going to come out of the AL, though? The Rangers look really
Sox.
good. The Red Sox right now, if we're looking at them, they're actually not terrible. They're not top 10.
They have a tough schedule.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They're the 13th best team in the MLB. So they're slightly above average.
Yeah. They got a tough schedule the rest of the way.
That is true.
Their teams in their division are good teams. They're all above 500.
I'm pretty sure the AL East is the hardest division in baseball right now.
And they're going to be playing Tampa Bay some more, and Baltimore, and the Yankees.
Well, Tampa Bay
and the Blue Jays too. I mean, they missed a big chance against the Blue Jays. They lost 3 straight to them at home.
Yeah,
come on, can't do that.
I mean, that's bad pitching. That's no hitting. But it's just interesting to think about. But we'll obviously have to wait and see. But this series, you go from Nationals are terrible, so I'm not. They should take care of the Nationals.
Win those 2 games.
But it's Yankees, Orioles, Dodgers, Orioles. I mean, that streak right there. Let's see, the Yankees, Orioles, and then you play the Royals again for another 3-game series. Let's just say you go 2-1 again, and then it's Rays, Orioles, Yankees, Blue Jays.
That's
and
tough.
then you play the Rangers for 3 games.
Yeah,
so that streak again is hard.
They got a tough schedule. They got to get all the rest of their players healthy and see if they can make a run.
And then you end the year with one should be relatively easy series, and then you finish out with 2 hard ones. White Sox, Rays, Orioles with that 4-game series.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's going to be difficult. I don't think the Red Sox going to be making the playoffs.
You don't
this
think
year.
so? Oh well, I'm still hopeful.
I saw this very, very interesting. The top 3 payrolls, Mets, Yankees, and I think Padres, spent a bunch of money this offseason. They're all projected to miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
So the question is, I mean,
and the 2 of them are in last place.
Yeah.
Right.
The
Mets are in last place. The Yankees are in last place in their division.
And I think the Padres are extremely close to being. Let's. I want to make sure I get that right.
19 games out of behind the
Padres are. Let's see.
Behind the Dodgers?
They're 11 games in front of the Rockies. I don't see them falling to last place in their division. They're 15.5 out of first place.
How far are they out of a wild card?
Out of a wild card, they are, let's see, wild card, NL, 5.5.
5.5, so they still have a chance. I mean, they should compete, right? I mean, look at the players they have.
Yeah. No,
they have a lot of good players.
Disappointment.
Yeah, massive disappointment.
I don't know why that's still up. We're not talking about the Broncos. But, I mean, just think about it. The question is, I mean, the Dodgers kind of paid for their World Series. They bought a lot of players, and it worked. The question is, though.
The Padres haven't been able to do that.
The Padres haven't. The Yankees haven't. And the Mets bought, and in the same season, tanked.
Don't they have a $300 million payroll this year?
I think it's $325 million. I think
terrible.
I'm pretty sure that's $100 million more
they
than
shed
everyone
a lot
else.
of payroll, though.
They got rid of Verlander.
And Matt Scherzer.
Yeah. It's crazy, though. You spend $300 million, and in this, not even one season later, you start tanking.
Yeah.
I
don't know. This is with the Angels. Man.
New York baseball right there. New York baseball.
The Angels were buyers at the trade deadline. They aren't doing anything.
They have a horrible record since the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say this. I talked about this, I believe, last night with some of my friends. We talked about some of the biggest disappointments in baseball this season, or just overall. If people are calling the Angels disappointments, you shouldn't be, because this is their common theme now. Mike Trout was the greatest player in baseball for a number of years, the best player easily in baseball. They kept losing and losing and losing and not making the playoffs and not making the playoffs, and it was bad. So at some point, you have to realize this team ain't going to make the playoffs. This team is going to be a disappointment. So I don't know why people are expecting this team to go far when, yes, I understand. They have what could be the greatest player in baseball history in Shohei Ohtani, and I think the greatest two-way player in baseball history already with Shohei, and what used to be the best player in baseball in Mike Trout, and still a tremendous player in Mike Trout. And, for the first couple seasons, they didn't make the playoffs. You're like, okay, even with Shohei going off, even with Mike Trout coming back from his injury and playing well, this team shouldn't be called a disappointment, because why are you expecting them to make the playoffs? They already showed they can't make the playoffs. Same thing with the Yankees. The Yankees keep being horrible disappointments each year. At some point, you got to realize they just can't make it anymore. Even with Judge hitting 62 home runs. I mean, I already knew. Once it's playoff time, Cole's probably not going to be that great. Judge may hit a slump at some point. Stanton's not going to show up. And lo and behold, if I'm not mistaken, all three of those hit right on the money. I know Judge had a very bad streak for a while where he went ice cold. Cole wasn't that great, and Stanton always deals with some sort of injury, and this season it just doesn't look like he cares. There's that viral video that went out about a week or so ago of he was on second, and it was like this bouncer into the outfield. He's jogging around third base and going home. It was out by like 5 steps. It was pretty bad, but I don't know. The Yankees should not be called disappointments because they always do this. This is a common theme for them. So I don't know. I think the probably the biggest disappointment for me was the Mets, because they spent $325 million. But then again, the Mets are known for being, completely embarrassing. So I think just, with based on player talent alone, the Padres are probably the biggest disappointment.
I agree.
You got Bogarts. Tatis came back from his suspension.
Machado.
You have Machado.
Soto.
You have Soto. I think you have Michael Wacha, who's good.
Yeah.
You have players. Snell had a very bad start with the Padres.
Doing very well so far.
He's doing. I believe they also have Yu Darvish, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
They have players, and they just haven't been able to perform very well.
Maybe they need to fire their manager.
That's not a horrible idea, but I think just based on player talent alone, I would give it to the Padres to be the biggest disappointments. Well, you decided to talk about some baseball at 7:27. It's now 7:39. A good 12-minute discussion about baseball. But that will wrap up today's episode of the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We are the co-host of the Harvey Hour. You could catch me Wednesday. I'm talking about Baker Mayfield's performance and probably more other NFL news, but we're highlighting Baker as the first topic of Wednesday's Harvey Hour Fired Up. But you can catch both of us on Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Night, Grandpa.
Introducing video podcasts on Spotify.
Transform your storytelling into a show everyone can watch
or listen to.
Easily upload your video through Anchor, Spotify's free podcast creation tool.
So whether you're showing off a new recipe,
interviewing an exclusive guest,
or uncovering the next mystery,
you can now reach a whole new audience with Spotify.
Podcasting just became more than audio.
Create with Anchor, watch on Spotify.